So, would you say you fell in love with it as you studied? What was the drive? Did you you considered it as a way you could provide for yourself? You fell in love as you studied it. Where did this passion come from? Like,
Yeah, so yeah, I think if I'm being completely honest, I think I have the struggle that most black people have, where that first decision in terms of what you study was based on financial need and not so much a passion. I mean, what I love about my job is that the way it is, the way it's set up, and the income that I've been able to make doing this work, it's allowed me to then pursue my passion outside. And I think I'm also one of those firm believers that your passion and your job don't have to be the same thing, because I think a job has certain characteristics that come with it where you feel obliged to do certain things. So I've never been one to try and combine my passion as well as what I get paid for. So I have a job, I have passions, and then I have hobbies. Those things are not the same to me.
perfect, sir. Now, can you describe to us then some of what your work entails?
Yeah, so I think I'll give you the well understood terminology. So geology is the study of rocks. I think when you break down, just all the different places that rocks can be applied to, that's when you start to understand just how broad geology can be. I mean, for one, all the jewelry that we wear, a lot of it is mined. So I mean, your gold, your diamonds, your rubies, sapphire, all those different rocks, geology has to study. Geology has to know their value. I mean, even if you look at diamonds, there's 1,000 rand diamonds, there's 100,000 rand diamonds, there's 4.5 million rand diamonds. So there's certain characteristics of those different types of rocks that give you that value. But rocks also come back to things like marble, so what you build in cemeteries, or rather the tombstones with, that's also rocks. So you're going from the most valuable material down to the least valuable material. All of it applies within geology. But I think when you're doing it from a mine perspective, like I'm doing, we've spent many years doing what's known as exploration geology. So this is when you're basically going out to a place where you know nothing about it, and then you start doing certain surveys. We call them geophysical surveys, and you're basically trying to find out how much value is in that land, what sort of minerals or rocks exist there that can be used for money. So in our case, it's iron ore, because I work for Kumba Iron Ore. So basically, when you've done those geophysical studies, then you have to do the work to say, is it feasible? And by feasible, we mean the amount of money that you would put into getting it out. Does it make sense in terms of how much money you would get when you sell it? And then once you've done that feasibility study, the actual mine opens, and that's where guys like myself come in now, which is the mining geologist or project geologist. And our job is to say, now that we know how much material is in the ground, where exactly is it? So we're looking at a smaller scale now. We're not just looking at a regional level, but we're looking at, on a day-to-day basis, as we load out certain material, how much money are we making? And loading out certain material speaks to you use, in a mining company, you have a lot of people that are involved. And I think one of the important people is the blasting crew. So they will basically blow up a piece of land, and that's how you fragment it, and then you can load it out in trucks. And I mean, for a month, you can load out about 5 million tons. Which is a lot of rock. So we work with open pit. And I think this is a good place to talk about the two types of mining, or the two types of dominant mining we have in South Africa. One is open pit, which is where you're basically digging a big hole. But I mean, this is speaking to about 8 kilometers worth of digging, which are dug out every year. And then the other one is your underground mining. So this is where you basically dig a hole underground, and then people go down to either do the mapping or to load out material. This is the more popular one from back in the day, how things like gold and platinum were mostly mined. I think the mining industry as a whole is moving away from that because it's not very safe. I think if you look at fatality stats, you had mines that were, killing about 76 people a year. This is back in 2001. And I mean, in this day and age, those numbers have dropped to about maybe even possibly zero within a year. And I mean, a lot of that has been the moving away from dangerous mining practices. And unfortunately, underground mining might be considered dangerous if the right measures aren't in place. Like I said, those are the two main types of mining, but it's not the only ones. I think anyone who's done a bit of research would know around things like alluvial mining, which is basically just as the I suppose if you think of diamonds in particular, one of the ways that they mined alluvially is when they brought down by a stream of a river and people just pick them up. And then the other one would be maybe marine mining, which is when you go out into the ocean and you start mining there. But there's many other different types of mining, because even your niobium phosphates, which is fertilizers, are also mined. So the term mining is quite broad. But I think I've given you an idea of what geologists do in that process.